It's time. It's time to open your eyes. It's time to open your mind. It's time to grow up and face reality. It's time to lock and load because it's MeatTrapper time. Hello everyone, and welcome to episode number 227 of MeatTrapper Radio. And we have a lot to talk about tonight. There has been a lot going on. There's some breaking news that is actually good news for a change. And so let's go ahead and get started. Let's jump right into it. The first thing I want to do is I want to thank our sponsor. That is southernsnares.com. If you are in the market for snares, you need to go to Southern Snares and nowhere else. That I can promise you. But they are also a full-line trap dealer. So if you need traps, baits, lures, hardware, anything like that, give southernsnares.com a try. And let Brian over there know that you heard about Southern Snares on MeatTrapper Radio. That will definitely help me out. And we were just trading pictures the other day, and he sent me a picture of a hog that one of his customers had snared with one of his heavy-duty hog snares. And if you're into snaring hogs, you owe it to yourself to check those things out. They're made out of 1/8-inch aircraft cable. The number 12 barrel swivels that he puts on those things are just tremendously strong. And, you know, a lot of people will make a snare and hammer a ferrule on, or they'll swage a ferrule on. But he has professional machinery that will put a crimp on a ferrule that is stronger than the cable. In other words, when you do a break test on his snares, the cable will break before the ferrules will let loose, and that's saying a lot. So be sure and check them out, because it is trapping season, and it is time to get out there and be getting on it. But the first thing I want to talk about, and if you're a Patreon member, we've had some issues over there with comments disappearing, and I just want to touch briefly on this because I do not delete comments off of Patreon. Never have, never will. That is our tribe. Everybody there is of super high quality. It's just buggy software. And you know, I've had a lot of issues with that website. But you know, and people say, why don't you switch to something else? And it's like, well, they're kind of the least dirty shirt in the laundry, to be honest. I mean, they're not perfect. Sure, they're liberals, and sure, they support liberal causes, just like YouTube. You know, just like Facebook, you know, Twitter, just like everything else, basically. So there's not a whole lot that I can do about that. But just know that I would never censor anything on Patreon. I do on YouTube all the time because, and I'm quite open and honest about that. I get all of the liberals and the antis and the PETA types and, you know, all of those people. And I don't bother arguing with them. I just delete their crap. You know, it's that simple. I treat them like they treat me. So if you make a comment on any of the posts in Patreon and then you can't find it, or it seems to have evaporated, I would not get all paranoid about being censored or think that I'm in disagreement with the comment or anything like that. You know, it's what do they say? The old rule is never attribute to malice what can be explained by stupidity. And I truly believe that, and so it's just buggy software. It's just crappy software. So anyway, enough about that. But one of the big breaking news items that we just had is that Kyle Rittenhouse is free on bail. They finally raised the $2 million in cash to get him out of jail pending trial. And I want you to know, if you're a Patreon member, you helped get him out of jail, because you see, there's a lot of things that those dues go to. There are a lot of causes that those dues help support, and Kyle Rittenhouse's bail fund was one of those things. So if you're a Patreon member and you wonder where your $1 a month or $5 a month goes to, it goes to people like Kyle. And one other thing to be aware of as far as his situation. Normally, you're able to put up a percentage of your bail. So, like if your bail is $100, you get a bail bondsman. You could put up $10 of your own money, and the bail bondsman puts up $90 of his money, and you get out. So, with a $2 million bond, you would only have to come up with $200,000 cash. But the way they did his, of course, it had to be paid in full. So he had to come up with the full $2 million. And at the time that I made our Patreon contribution, we were up to 600. We were up to 1.4 million with a balance remaining of $600,000 to get him out. And one of the people that stepped up was the CEO of the My Pillow company, and he made a very sizable contribution to put them over the top. And the reason I say this is we have to support those who support us. Just like we support Brian as a trap supply dealer. If you're in the market for a pillow, I can promise you the next time I buy a pillow, it's going to be a My Pillow, because the guy that owns that company helped to get Kyle Rittenhouse out of jail. So, you do what you want, but I'm just telling you what I'm going to do. I support those who support us. So, just keep that in mind next time you're shopping around. And it's like at the grocery store. I buy more and more of the products made by Goya, the food products, Goya. The CEO of that company took a lot of crap for supporting the president. When the president asked him to serve on an economic development committee or something like that, and he said, "Yes, sure, I'd love to." And the liberals had a meltdown, and so whenever I'm buying products that Goya offers, I buy them over others, and they are higher quality in my opinion. As far as their offerings. So anyway, got an email from James, and he had a good question, and I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this. But it's sort of a philosophical question, and we're going to have a philosophical episode tonight, especially on the back half of the show, the Patreon private segment. We've got a segment from Barry coming up on the psychology of poaching that is an awesome segment, and I'm very happy to have his input on that. But we'll get to that on the back half of tonight's show. But basically, James was sort of asking how can we keep good things good, and one of the examples that he gave was free enterprise. Okay, you have the capitalist system, the free enterprise system, which is a good thing. You have people out there competing in the marketplace, a lack of government control over everything, and you get a very efficient market. But over time, there can be distortions of the free enterprise system, and you fast forward to today, where you have small business that is turned into corporations that turn into huge corporations that become so powerful and so wealthy that they can control the government, they control the media, they can influence the direction of our society. They basically have a stranglehold on things. And if you look at Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and look at the effect that they've had on this election, you look at all of the censorship that they've done against conservatives, and you look at how stores like Walmart and Amazon have put small businesses completely off to the side, if not out of business. And when they have these huge war chests of funds, because they're so huge, they just can buy any politician they want. So they can completely censor anything conservative. They can lampoon anything conservative. They can mobilize an army of useful idiots. They can blackmail institutions into firing people that are conservatives. If you're a university professor and you dare disagree with liberal philosophy, they will get you fired. They will ruin your career. You'll never get hired again. This happens all across the spectrum. So they're controlling, the college system. They're controlling the media. They're controlling the government. So what started out as a good thing, what started out as free enterprise, has ended up being morphed into something that is a stranglehold on our nation, and it's turned into a fascist dictatorship in many respects. And his question was very simple. And how do you stop that? How do you put a stop to that? Because the thing is if you say, well, let's have the government clamp down, well, that's the very antithesis of free enterprise and freedom. And so you really don't want the government coming in and dictating to private enterprise, but you can't have private enterprise be so big that it dictates to government. In other words, you end up with a catch-22 situation. And, so the question of how do you prevent that? And to me, I go back to a common theme, and that is quality of the individual, which we no longer have. I am reading a book that's a biography of Theodore Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt is one of my favorite Americans. And I know people are going to get upset with that and say, oh, he was anti-free enterprise and blah, 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 blah. Well, he faced a lot of these same issues. They used to call them the robber barons, and those guys were brutal, man. They were ruthless. But Roosevelt had to deal with this. And when you look back on that time around the late 1800s and early 1900s, the difference between then and now is the quality of the individual American. Pure and simple. People back then they had the same corrupt tendencies, they had the same greed, they had the same jealousies. In other words, human nature has not changed. And will never change. You're going to have good people. You're going to have bad people. You're going to have people that lie, people that cheat, people that steal. You're always going to have that as far as human nature. But what I mean is overall, at the societal level, the educational level, the morality level, and the physical level of the average American back then was far superior to the average American today. You go back to the 1800s and 1900s, and people weren't riding through Walmart on scooters. Okay? It's that simple. People didn't weigh 400 pounds, and they weren't riding through Walmart on electric scooters demanding free money and free food because of what happened to their ancestors, or somebody did something wrong a couple of hundred years ago, so they need to get a free ride, and everything should be free. You didn't have that. People called them like they saw them back then. They would get into violence. You go back and study Teddy Roosevelt when he was in the New York State Legislature. They would get into fistfights, on the floor of the House of Representatives there. They would call each other out. They would excoriate each other. They disagreed violently. But the difference is one side or the other didn't wish for the destruction of the nation like we have today. We have almost half the population of this country that has been brainwashed to the point that they hate America and they think America is a bad place, and they have no loyalty to the country. You've never had that before. You didn't have that in Teddy Roosevelt's day. So you could have very severe, violent disagreements, but they were disagreements about what was best for the country. Not that the country was evil and needed to be dissolved, that the statues of everything needed to be torn down, that the country was founded on evil itself. And that's exactly what you have today. And so when you combine these two factors, when you combine the fact that people today are stupider than they were back then, and if you don't believe me, go get an old school textbook. I collect first edition antique books. I've got a book in my collection that I found in an abandoned schoolhouse out in the woods in Alabama, and it was a little town, you can look it up, Red Level, Alabama, dated 1920. And it was a math textbook. And it was a little book, like a 5x7 book, maybe 60 pages. And it was donated to the school by the local cotton gin. In other words, the local company bought math textbooks to give to the school. And of course, the questions, in it revolved around practical business math. If a bale of cotton is this many feet long and, this many feet tall and this many feet wide, how much does it weigh and all this kind of stuff. And of course, the company was doing that because they needed people to come out of school that were smart enough to work for them, that could do the math to handle this stuff. You don't have anything like that today. Today, all of the textbooks are written by college professors who are Marxists or communists, and they're designed to run everything down. And you can't hold anybody responsible for getting the right answer in math because math is racist. And so back to James's question, how do you prevent it? Well, back then, Roosevelt was able to go in and bust up a lot of these robber barons and get some of this stuff broken up and back on the right track because there were enough people out there that were still honest and still morally uncorrupted to say, you know what, we need to make the playing field level. We need to make the grounds fair. Today, nobody gives a crap about fair. They want their way. They want their free stuff. They want their money. And they don't, look at rich folks in the stock market. They don't care that we're destroying the currency to inflate the stock market as long as their 401ks keep going up. So I'm not just picking on poor people. I'm not just picking on, people that are on welfare. I try and make this very obvious that the disease runs the gamut of society. The super rich are just as corrupt, if not more morally bankrupt than the people at the bottom. And the people at the top are the ones that need to set their examples. And we don't have that anymore. If you look at Teddy Roosevelt, he was fastidious in setting examples. Now, he wasn't perfect. But when you look at the example that he set and the way he lived his life, you look at the speeches that he gave, and you look at his physical toughness. Hell, he stood up on a podium giving a political speech after he had been shot. He stood up there for 29 minutes with blood running down his chest after he had been shot. Somebody tried to kill him. They pulled a pistol out and shot him, and it went through, he had an eyeglasses case, and it went through the eyeglasses case, and then it was in a pocket, and then behind that was a book, and the bullet went through that and then lodged into him. And just think about that, and then think about the kind of people we have today. There's no comparison. There's absolutely no comparison. And until we get the quality of the individual back on track, there's no point in worrying about anything else. There's no point in worrying if they cheated on the election or if the voting machine was rigged or whatever. As long as you've got, 100 million people that want to vote for free stuff, the machine doesn't matter. That's sad but true. And so what is my answer? My answer, even though it may be insufficient to change the course of events in the long term, is like I said last time. I talk about the tribe, the Patreon tribe. Surround yourself with quality people. What is the old saying? Birds of a feather flock together, or, lay down with dogs and wake up with fleas, or whatever. Everybody's got different sayings, but they're all talking about the same thing, and that is, you have to segregate yourself from the detrimental effects of society as much as possible. And you see this, the Amish are masters at this, and I'm not, they're not perfect and all of that kind of stuff, but they do a masterful job of maintaining their culture, maintaining their ideas and ideals, and helping each other and not being corrupted by society. Now, I know there are a lot of them that, that have fallen by the wayside, and you can find examples of criminality in the Amish community. I'm well aware of all of that. I'm well aware of those instances and examples. But I would say overall, on a percentage basis, that groups like that do a far better job of preserving their identity and their culture than we do. I go into the sauna at the gym, and the funny thing is people are so inconsiderate of anybody else. These guys will walk in with their phones blaring the rap music that they've got to listen to, right? And we had the rap battle the other night where one fella had to walk in with his rap music, and of course nobody in there wants to listen to your music or your crap or listen to you talk to your wife or girlfriend. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to hear that. You go in there to relax, and to chill out. But another guy walked in with his phone blaring different rap music, and it was funny because then they were interfering with each other. But it's an absurd situation that we live in, and all you have to do is look at this COVID mania, this mass hysteria. It's unfreaking believable how stupid the people of this country have become. They're driving down the road in a car by themselves with a mask on their face. Just freaking idiots. And God, the lemmings will turn on you. I was in the store the other day, and I was the only person in the entire store that didn't have a mask on. I was the only one. It's what can you do? So anyway, I thought that was an interesting question from James, and sort of a philosophical bent there. So not a whole lot about trapping or survival or anything like that, but a lot about society and the society that we live in and the current state of it. And when you look around and you analyze the state of society, that is why you have to be prepared, and that's why you need to have your traps, you need to have your snares, you need to have your health, you need to have your teeth fixed. You need to be healthy, wealthy, and wise. And speaking of wealth, I need to do an episode on Bitcoin, because the cryptocurrencies are exploding. XRP was up 32% overnight, 32% in one night. Bitcoin is on a bull run. I'm a big Bitcoin guy myself. And people are getting out of the dollar and into non-dollar assets. So be healthy, wealthy, and wise. So if you are a Patreon supporter, I'd like to invite you to stay tuned for the second half of tonight's show. And if you're not, I would like to ask you to consider becoming one. You can go to patreon.com/MeatTrapper, get all signed up, and become part of the tribe. And it is a It's a collection of the finest individuals that I've ever been associated with, and I truly mean that. I'm proud of each and every one of them, and I'm grateful for their support. And don't know what else to say. But we're going to hear from two people on the back half of tonight's show. We're going to hear from Eric the Viking, who is going to tell us how he poaches ducks in a socialist country, how he dodges packs of wild Karens, spandex wearing wild Karens in the socialist country. And then we're going to hear from Barry on the psychology of poaching, and I'll close the show out with my thoughts on that as well. So stay tuned.